the whole phenomenon of being a homosexual, meaning you're sleeping with women just to keep a roof over your head. We see this even in the conscious community. We have brethren who are brilliant in their history, but because they burned Babylon, or they not dealing with the system, they're not able to keep steady income.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen, the balance. Blessings. My name is Kwasi Bansu, also known as Dejazmatch Kwasi, also known as Ras Kwasi, also known as the Pan-African Happy Man, Reading Ras, so many other names. I'm an entertainment attorney, I'm an author, I'm an artist, and I'm an actionist. And today I stand before you all as the host of the Lion Voice vlog. So we give thanks that we are here once again. This is episode 18. Before I get into the episode, I just want to give thanks to all of the new members to the Dejazmatch Kwasi ecosystem. If you're a member of the Dejazmatch Kwasi ecosystem, that means you subscribe to the website, you're following on Facebook, the Dejazmatch Kwasi ecosystem on Facebook, you're following on Instagram, you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, you're engaged in some kind of way in the ecosystem. We haven't got any Patreon supporters yet, but I know we're going to continue to put into the work. And I know that those of you who want to support the mission and the works will materialize. And this is, again, what we're building is a proof of concept for creatives. And I do strongly believe that this is the way forward, that every creative, no matter what your role in the creative industry, that you will have to create your own ecosystem. This is my attempt to create mine. And of course, being that I wear so many hats, you know, I have to be judicious with how I allocate my time, so I can't give the full time that I have to building out the ecosystem. So I have to take my time because, you know, the legal practice is the bread and butter, so that's going to get the majority of the time. However, you know, I am a creative first, and I'm trying to, you know, build out this ecosystem slowly but surely. So I give thanks for all of the patience, everybody who's accompanying us on this journey. And I want us to all remember, I'm relishing the journey because, you know, each subscriber, each little tiny milestone that we get, you know, I cherish. Every time someone hits the subscribe button, it's a blessing, because you didn't have to subscribe, you didn't have to support this, but you have chosen to of your own free will. So I'm loving the journey. I'm not going to stop the journey. I'm going to continue to create the content to build. We're building out multiple platforms. I'm helping other creatives. And also remember, I am offering consultations as an entertainment attorney. It doesn't matter where you are. If you just want to talk to someone and get an orientation from a legal perspective, a legal roadmap, working on doing some legal assessments in terms of your creative business as well, offering that service almost like a legal audit. So book an appointment, a consultation. You can do that on dejazmatchkwasi.com, and I will be happy to sit with you and give a consultation. We're also doing just general consultations for creatives, so those consultations are not legal related, but, you know, just sounding board. You can talk about your business. You know, I'll give you some recommendations, how I see it based on my interaction with the creative industry, and just help to build, so that can be helpful. So if you're creative, you just want a general consultation, again, you can book on the website. If you want a legal focused consultation, you can book on the website. So give thanks for all of the support. And now we're going to get into the topic for episode 18. And what is that topic? We're getting into relationship topics again. So I'm talking to the young lions again. And this is so critical as part of the kingdom building, because we can't create kingdoms in the conscious community without the brethren them really stepping up and being kings. You can't have kingdoms without kings. You can't have kingdoms without queens. So we're really trying to inculcate the essential components about building the kingdom. And if you read the title for this episode, you'll see it's called Hypergamy and the Economics of Love and Relationships. So I want to introduce this term to Rastafari, to the conscious community, that I learned from watching the manosphere. And just to be clear, I don't consider myself necessarily a part of the manosphere, but as a black man, you know, I watch the content and I'm fascinated by this conversation, particularly in Black America, that has really caused the world to start looking at relationships, the black family, where we're going as a people. I think it's fascinating, and I big up, you know, the content creators that are considered part of the manosphere. As Rastafari, we have a very unique way of our livity, and therefore I think there are likely some things in the manosphere that we're going to differ on in terms of how we view things. But I do think for black males, it's very important that you tune in on some of these conversations that are coming up. And we're going to talk about some of the concepts that I see coming out of the manosphere dialogue in this episode that I think are relevant to young black men in the conscious community, and even men of my age and stature. So we're going to talk about these things and we're going to go into them. Again, hypergamy, the economics of love and relationships. So what is hypergamy? Hypergamy is a concept, again, that I learned. I think most men know this intuitively, but it is a defined term. It is something that has been studied scientifically. And basically, hypergamy is the action of women marrying or forming sexual relationships with a person of a superior sociological or educational background. So basically, it's the principle that women marry up, and there's a lot of reasons for this, you know, whether it be evolutionary biology, whether it be socialization, nature versus nurture. On both sides, there are arguments as to why this phenomenon, and this phenomenon cuts across culture, religion. Generally, women want a man that's either on their level or above them from a social stature point of view, and also from an economic point of view. This is something that is not talked about a lot in the conscious community. You know, we more are dealing with, you know, article connection and blessings, but what I've noticed is that some of the same relationship problems plague our relationships, just like the wider society. In the conscious community, in the Rastafari community, we still have a lot of single parent homes. We still have a lot of fathers not being in the household. We have a lot of broken kingdoms, and you know, these are things that I examine, and I have my own lived experience. I've been married almost 15 years. I've been with my wife over 20 years consecutively without interruption. So you know, I've lived the stable relationship life. However, there are certain components that I think has allowed my success in that life, and again, we're going to talk about it. This episode might be triggering to some brethren and even to some sistren, but comfort is the enemy of progress, and we have to address this. And if you disagree with me, I want to hear about it in the comments, because I could be talking a load of BS. And if you feel that way, let's start dialogue in the conscious community. My content is geared to the conscious community, the Rastafari community, although I think there's universal application because these are concepts that affect young men across the board. So let's look at some statistics before we get into why knowing about hypergamy is important for the conscious community and whether or not it applies to the conscious community. And I'm going to give my opinion, but let's look at the statistics so we can paint a picture of the state of black unions. We're going to use America, but I think if we look across different countries, we can call it Western values. We're going to see some of the same trends. So basically, only 30% of black people in America are married today. 48% of black women have never been married in America. Black women, and this is a fairly recent phenomenon, black women were actually married at higher rates than white women up until the 1970s. These statistics, by the way, are coming from blackdemographics.com. I'll try to put a link in the description so you can check out some of these statistics for yourself. So what does this lead to? It leads to only 38% of black children live with parents that are currently married. 4% live with parents who live together but are not married. 13% of black children live with their mother who is divorced or separated, and only 31% live with a mother who has never been married. So you can see these are not good statistics. It's a story of broken homes, broken families, and statistics about the outcomes for single children who are raised in single parent households. They're significantly disadvantaged from their peers who grew up in two-parent households. So very important. One of the biggest causes for divorce or separation, according to black demographics and other sources, and I think according to common sense, is the lack of economics. During the pandemic period, they say that black unemployment soared to a high of 16%. So that means 16% of black men were unemployed. By comparison, white men were 12.3% of white men were unemployed during the pandemic, which was astronomical for the white population. So you see, black people, we were at 16, which is very high, and this doesn't capture the total joblessness. This is just tracking those who are chronically out of the job market don't register. So there's a much larger pool of unemployed black males, and this is a very serious thing. One explanation again for the low marriage rates is that the potential earnings among black men, with higher graduation rates currently, are being enjoyed by black females. African American women have higher graduation rates than black men. The median income fell 12% for black men, while it's rising for 75% of women from 1974 to 2004. Again, these are blackdemographic.com statistics. And a high earning woman has little incentive to marry a low earning man. So again, hypergamy, she wants to find a man that's on her level or above just innately, and we'll talk about some potential reasons for that. Higher mortality rates due to poor health care, violent crime, incarceration rates have also been shown to decrease the African male population and the availability of eligible husbands for women. And one of the things I'm going to be doing on this content is reasoning with women in the conscious community, because I think on a lot of platforms we see discussions from black women, but a lot of the conscious community women are different. They read books, they're educated about their history. So I think it's going to be a much a more fascinating deep dive by bringing and I'm going to dip into my superpower, which I always say is my network, to pull some of the beautiful, intelligent, attractive sisters that I know that are in the conscious community that are single, and we're going to ask them what they go through and what they face, and try to get some insights from them. What I wanted to talk about are 5 salient points on this topic. So we're talking about hypergamy and the economics of love and relationships. The first point that I want to highlight is that every kingdom requires economics to run. So, you know, I talk about purpose over pum pum, or purpose over that something there. We talk about the discipline or the D-discipline, keep it PG-13, and we encourage young men, find your purpose before you worry about long-term relationships, settling down. Even be very careful if you're engaging in intercourse with females, that you're not being careless and bringing life into the world before your kingdom is set. We want to be very much emphasize this point. But during that purpose time, you have to put some of your thoughts and the majority of your thoughts to the economics. How is your kingdom going to run? You have to have a place to bring this queen when you identify her. And if you know, I did a video on identifying your queen, the art of vetting. When you identify this queen, you have to have somewhere to put her if you're a king. A kingdom, so to speak, whether that's an apartment which is low tier, whether it's a house that you are paying a mortgage on mid-tier, whether it's land and a house that you own outright, which is the ideal which you want for your kingdom, that you're merely paying property tax to the central governmental authority. But ideally every kingdom or every king should aspire to have a piece of property that they own outright, and this is for the legacy that you can pass down to your children, that you can have your queen, and that in these 4 walls, or in this palace that we will call it, every man's home is his palace. Your word is the law. You know, you are the one that is executing the judgment within your space. Your queen is catering to the eye is catering to the queen, and that is the kingdom. So we want to make sure that every man has the economics to run. That requires that you think about this very seriously. Whether you have a job that you're working, and one of the things I love about the manosphere that they recommend for young men is working at least on multiple platforms. I've heard this, you know, for young men to be working at least 60 hours. You know, in your youth, you live on the 40 hours, you bank and invest the 20 hours, you know, whether that be a weekend or an evening job. So really being focused on 60 hours of where you're being paid, so you can start to build your economics, because when you're starting your kingdom, you are the economic engine, particularly if you're a black man. So you have to sort that out. So every kingdom requires economics to run. That's critical for us to learn the economics of love and relationships. Number 2 lesson: women require stability and security. Let me say that again. Women require security and stability. I switched it, but the things that remain the same. For your woman to rest in her femininity comfortably, to focus her attention on the eye and the family, she needs to feel secure and she needs to feel stable. So this is across the board, doesn't matter race, religion, creed. As a king, this is part of your duty to provide this for your family. Another way to say this that is common is that a man's duty is to provide and protect. So it's very critical. Again, providing has an economic component. Protection also can have an economic component because you're protecting her from homelessness, from different things. And some people say, wait, what are you saying, the woman can't work? Well, we know that in the modern world, women are going to have to work. But remember the principle of hypergamy, and we'll talk about how that can play in to the instability of a relationship. If your woman is making more money than you are, and you're not doing certain things to offset and to compensate. I'm not saying that can't work, because of course there are many relationships where the woman makes more, but there are certain things that have to be done. As a man, you have to be aware of the principle of hypergamy and make sure that you maintain your masculine frame and you're offsetting, you're bringing value in kind that offsets the value that she's bringing economically. And this may sound very cold and calculated, but this is the reality of long-lasting relationships that you have to understand, because even some women don't understand that they are hypergamous. So their attraction might wane for you because you're not doing certain things, and she might not even process that in a conscious way, that she's seeing you as lesser, or not, that you're not giving her them butterfly. They are that exhilarating feeling of, yeah, I'm ready for you. That can happen. So it's just to be aware. And again, if she's making more money, you're offsetting that by other value that you're bringing to the table. And that, I think, is a big difference with the conscious community. I think we recognize the other values that can be brought to the table. But a lot of conscious men are only coming with these other values and ignoring the economic component, and these relationships are not lasting. So we want to talk about that. Number 3, women are hypergamous by nature, and feminism and the modern woman and all of this independent woman, strong woman, did not end hypergamy. I'm going to attach a link to an article and a study that showed that even with women, high education, they're more able to take care of themselves. They're more able to do all of the things that traditionally they complained that the patriarchy was holding them down. But even these women who achieve this great success still want men who are either at their level or above. So it doesn't matter, because if hypergamy wasn't real or wasn't a thing, then these women who could take care of themselves would be willing to date down. And when they do date down with men who are not on their level, a lot of time they're not really respecting these brethren. They might run the brethren. The brethren is quote unquote a beta male type, a brethren who doesn't mind being the back burner to his woman. This may touch a con. This may cause controversy. Drop some comments. Let me hear. I'm willing to be shown evidence to the contrary. So please drop a comment. Let me know if a foolishness may talk. Number 4. This is a very important point. The conscious community is not exempt from hypergamy. Meaning, just because you read books, you know about history, just because you locks them long, just because you profess the love of the Almighty, doesn't mean you can go into a relationship with all this knowledge and zeal and and that alone is going to sustain the relationship. Many brethren in the conscious community take all of the time studying and neglecting that economic balance, becoming a master in something, earning, building their earning potential. They're not doing that essential work. We meet a lot of brethren. The whole phenomenon of being a homosexual, meaning you're sleeping with women just to keep a roof over your head. We see this even in the conscious community. We have brethren who are brilliant in their history, but because they burned Babylon, or they not dealing with the system, they're not able to keep steady income. You know, they live on a hustling economy and their hustle is not working, and you know what I mean. So you, as a conscious brethren, have to understand that just because you're in the conscious community, hypergamy still exists. If you want that woman to maintain that respect, you're going to have to either and I'm not saying just because you earn more you gain respect. That is not the case either. There's still a lot of components, but that is an important component, that either, again, you're on the same or higher socioeconomic level, or you're bringing other value. And we'll talk about, from a conscious perspective, how you can bring value that exceeds monetary, because it's not just monetary value that can count, that can work. And I've seen relationships work where a man brought other value to the relationship. And again, I think this is a distinction within the conscious community that we would differ from some of the more purists in the manosphere realm. Number 5, and this circles back to point number 1, which is every kingdom requires economics to run. Part of having a plan is and pursuing your purpose must be focused on economics. So when you're planning out your kingdom, what that looks like, spend a good portion of that time making sure your kingdom has an economic engine. If you desire a stable relationship, a place to bring your queen, feed, clothe, shelter your queen. So these are very important things to do. I've been blessed. As I said, I've been with my wife 20 years. We've been married 15 years. She's worked. She's been a stay-at-home mother. She's gone out in the corporate world and made money. So we've kind of had different configurations over the years. But I've always been the majority breadwinner. Always been able to provide food my family. I'm not wealthy by any means. I'm not even rich right now. I've given my life up to this point to community works. I'm just now starting to really build up my ecosystem. But the fact is that we have to understand that women generally want men of value. And this brings us to another term within the conscious community. And this is the high value man term, which was popularized by Kevin Samuels. He's like the superstar of the black manosphere and the manosphere in general. Very controversial figure. He had an average at best video that went viral, and now he's over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He's in future videos, whole heap of thing. Topics of many a room and clubhouse, and vloggers and people have made whole careers just commenting on his content. But he's introduced a concept that I think is very fascinating, this concept of the high value man. And basically the concept is that across all nationalities there are characteristics that women deem attractive and desire, and that mostly all women are seeking the same pool of men, and these men are high value. And this has been across history, across the ages. And he gives 6 factors as to what makes a high value man. We're going to examine them, and then we're going to measure them against Rastafari standard. Funny enough, we're going to find out that by his definition, His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I would have been considered a high value man, even at the tender age of 19 when he was married to Empress Menen. And that this is why I think it's very interesting, because typically we're at Bun Babylon, money system, all of this, we burn these things as Rastafari. But when we look very closely at the trad, this is a high value man conception in terms of what His Majesty represents, and what I think we must aspire to as black men who are rising to lead this new charge and to lead this kingdom, and where we need to really push our young people, our young black man, them coming up. So we're going to talk about it, the standard. So for Kevin Samuels' high value man standard, he has 6 factors. Number 1 is money. You have to make a minimum of $10,000 a month. That leads you to a 6-figure income for the year, roughly around 120, and that's in Atlanta, New York, Miami dollars, you know. So you have to make $10,000 a month minimum. So this is the economic, the money portion. Number 2, this money has to be made over a length of time. You give 3 to 5 years, so that means if you have 1 year you make 6 figures, that doesn't make you a high value man. You have to demonstrate consistency. And again, this leads into the main thing that women are looking for: security and stability. These first two factors. But it doesn't stop there. And just to balance from a Rastafari perspective, His Majesty, as the Dejazmatch Kwasi, he was married at 19. He had inherited all of the wealth of his father, Rastafari. He was a member of Ethiopian nobility. So he would have made over $10,000 a month from the various farms, real estate holdings, rental properties, different things that were owned by his father, Rastafari. And Rastafari had, you know, many properties that he owned and earned income from. So His Majesty, as the Dejazmatch Kwasi, would have made over $10,000 a month, and he would have made that 3 to 5 years. In fact, the entirety of his existence, he would have been in this bracket for the first 2. The third factor is the group acceptance by other high value men. So that means other people who meet all of these 6 criteria also view you as their peer. Again, His Majesty was viewed as a peer to the other nobility. He was in that class, so again, you would have fit that characteristic. Number 4 is a network of other high value men. You must have a network that you can rely on. So if you look at His Majesty again, His Majesty had a network of nobles that were loyal to him, that valued him, and he cultivated that network globally. As he grew in power, that network became a global network, not just the Ethiopian nobility or the Shawa nobility. Number 5, visibility, position, and income is LinkedIn level. This is the Kevin Samuels definition, and basically he's saying that whatever you do should be searchable, Googleable. You can Google and find the person. So if we use again His Majesty, he was governor of Harar, he was king of Ethiopia, heir plenipotentiary. So he was not Googleable, but is well known what he was and what he did. So again, you would fit this. And basically, by Kevin Samuel's definition, he's saying that you can be an amorphous entrepreneur or a street pharmaceutical type person, or you hustle and you make this money. That's not the high value that's universally accepted across culture. And yes, those people exist that have that shady money, but they're not necessarily universally desired by women of all types. A certain type of woman will desire those type of men, but not all type of women would desire that type of man. Whereas those men who very clear were how they're making their money, again, it goes to safety, stability, and security. You're gonna feel more secure if you know that the man is getting his money legitimately. And the 6 is that he's useful to the group and others. Again, if we use His Majesty, of course he was useful to his group of peer of high value men, and you know, nobody did more for Ethiopia in the history of Ethiopia than His Majesty. So of course he was useful to his peers. So the interesting thing about this concept, and this concept has gotten a lot of pushback because it doesn't talk about morality, doesn't talk about character, which Kevin Samuel says is important. He takes it out. That's, you know, because individuals and culture, morality, religion, difference, what people are looking for across cultures. But these kind of distilled factors across all cultures, races, and religions are consistent as to the men that are desired by the majority of the women. So in the conscious community, to bring it back to what we're talking about, hypergamy, the economics of love and relationships in the conscious community, many of us kind of de-emphasize the economic, and I'm guilty of this myself, not putting a lot of emphasis on the economic portion, setting economic goals and being competitive in terms of the attainment of these economic goals. Instead, we pour our time and resources into community service. But we see in doing that, we always run up into issues of money, capital, sustaining the work. And most Pan-African conscious Rastafari people I know right now are on an economic vibration, because I think all of us have realized the hard way the importance of economics, and that volunteerism cannot build a nation. We have to build the economics. So my question, does this high value man definition, is it useful for the conscious community? Should it just stay in the manosphere? Should we be aspiring our youth them to hit these markers? I don't see anything wrong with any of those markers that have been established, and I think for men in particular, young men, goal setting and having benchmark is crucial, because otherwise you're just out there kind of floating, and men by our nature are competitive. So I think having some independent benchmarks, and we might differ in terms of how we interpret some of these things, and this is where I think the nuance in the conscious community. For example, a farmer may not have the economic component of the 10,000 per month, but if the farmer is a landowner, he can still provide, and he has his own house on his land. He may not be earning that money, but he can provide that stability, that security that has equal weight or value. He might be sitting on a few acres of land, and the equities in that land, he's not liquid to making that money. He might even be in debt, but he could still maintain a relationship, because even though he's not making a lot of money, or his woman might be making more money, he's providing value, he's growing food, he's doing, and I think that is where, as a conscious community, we would differ. Also, people with a trade, plumber, you have certain men who can billows from their bare hands. If you bring these type of blue collar skills, you can fix anything around the house, you can fix car, do all of these things that have value, that cost. I've seen these relationships work as well, where the woman is earning more, but the man is a tradesman. He brings value in the services that he provides for the family. He can fix everything around the house, he can build a house, he can do, you have them Monday, and I've seen that work as well. So I think there's ways to balance out the hypergamy, but we have to remember that those things that those blue collar brethren or those farmers are doing, it has an economic value. It's not tracked maybe in the same way traditionally, or it wouldn't meet this narrow definition of what high value is for Kevin Samuels in the manosphere. But I think in the conscious community, it's useful to know. But I think what is not useful is for us to ignore that hypergamy exists, and to ignore that we need economics in our relationships. So tell me what you think. Hypergamy, the economics of the kingdom, is this a fact? Is it foolishness? Again, drop some comments. We have a lot of content that's coming. We are very excited to bring this content to you. And the great thing is, again, that right now the lion is finally telling its own story. And this is the lion's voice. See that?
When Rastafari repair the damage.